Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our session on agentic observability with Azure AI Foundry and Azure Monitor. Woohoo! We made it to day 3, and we're super excited to, together with my colleagues who are going to show their faces in a second, Sebastian, Akanksha, and our wonderful guest, Justin from Veeam. We are on a mission to equip you with the right tools that help you with agentic observability with Azure AI Foundry. We all know that this area is extremely important. We all want tools to evaluate our agents before putting them in production and continue monitoring them after production. And we also know that it's important to be able to trace the whole thing and understand when something goes wrong, what is the root cause of it, and how can we intervene. So today, we're super excited to put the Azure AI observability ecosystem in your very capable hands. That is a set of tools that gives you a lot of different evaluations for understanding the quality and safety and performance of your agents, as I mentioned, before production, but also continuously doing it in production. And that gives you also a single pane of glass for you to continue looking at your insights and get conclusion about what needs to be altered. Now, when I say end-to-end and unified, the reason why I use those words is because truly doing observability is a journey. You start by planning your generative AI application scenario, or in this case, where our focus is on agents. You start thinking about what model to use, or what ecosystem, what knowledge base to connect to, what tools to call. Then you take it to the development stage where you become a little bit more serious about the different options that you have, and you want to kind of evaluate it in production, before production in order to decide what is that candidate that makes it out. And finally, it's the operate stage where you have shipped it, your users and customers are using it, and it's important to continue looking at it post-production. So we're excited because our tools really span across all of these. We have governance tools we're talking about today. We have the evaluation tools, monitoring tools. We show you a lot of different parts of optimization. And so today, I'm just going to start first from the very first stage where you're planning your generative AI application, and in this case, agents, because it's very important to select the right model. It's very important to understand what evaluations are applicable to your scenario. And of course, it's very important to then transition to the development phase from the prototyping phase. So with that said, let's actually introduce our safety and quality evaluators. You might have seen them, because some of them we have announced before. It's an Azure AI Evaluation SDK. They span across quality and risk and safety. I'll introduce a new category in a second. But we wanted to give you a set of metrics where you can take a look at the agents and try to understand how they're doing in terms of the quality of the answers they're generating, but also in terms of the safety of the answers, whether it produces any violent content or self-harm or sexual, whether it falls for jailbreak attempts, yes or no, whether it falls for generating protected materials. And for quality, things like, is it hallucinating? Is it generating relevant answers? Is it generating fluent answers that has the right fit and flow of the sentences, or grammatical correctness, or choice of vocabulary? But specifically today, we're quite excited to double-click on our evaluators for agents. You see, agents are also like generative AI application. We want to care about their quality of generated answers. We want to care about the safety of their generated answers, but they also have additional dimensions that we need to take care of. For example, they're very autonomous. They do tool calls. We really want to make sure that we give you a set of evaluators that really looks into whether the tool calls are happening in the right way, or the right parameters are being passed to them. Also, we want to provide you with a set of evaluators that helps you understand whether we're resolving the intent of the user when they're asking an agent to take an action. And last but not least, the response quality is quite important too. Is it adhering to the task that it's doing? Is it completing the answer? Meaning, is it covering all the information that needs to be covered there, or whether it completely misses information out? And so that's the third category that we're putting in your hands, agentic evaluators, and we're going to demonstrate that to you in a second. And on top of that, if you have an evaluator that you care about and is not on this list, don't worry, because our custom evaluator framework enables you to either define AI-related or LLM judge metrics or code-based, Python-based, math-based evaluators as well. So you can define your own and use it for both pre-production and post-production. Now today, I'm going to focus on an application called Contoso Outdoor Support Agent. We're going to take a look at it in a second, but we're pretending that we are the company building it. Of course, we're in Seattle, and there's endless conversations amongst my local colleagues about hiking and their weekends and whatnot. I got really tired of those conversations, but then I used it in our presentation, so I think that was not for nothing. So we really want to showcase that as a use case because it's a chatbot. It's an agent for you to essentially connect to your knowledge base, which in this case is Contoso Retail Database. And there are different concerns that I have about it. I really want to make sure that it adheres to the task that I'm asking it to do. I really want to make sure it resolves the question, so it really answers the question about the products. I want to check the safety of it. And I also want to make sure it's not generating low-quality answers. So with that, let's switch and take a look at that together. The very first thing that I want to do is to pick the right model to build an agent on. Here I'm in Azure AI Foundry, and I'm in the model catalog specifically. You can see that we have a lot of models, more than 11,000, which now with the Hugging Face database or models being added here, it's a lot. Which one would you choose? So that's a really good question, and that's exactly what our leaderboards are here. You can take a look at different leaderboards. The safety one is also coming, which I'm quite excited about. So you can really take a look at different dimensions and take the model that makes sense to you. And even better, you can generate those benchmarks on your own data as well. So in this case, let's say I take a look at quality, O4 Mini, O3, both are leading the way. I can also take a look at safety. Seems like GPT-4o Mini is leading the way. So that is the one that I choose. But again, note that you can also redefine these agents, these benchmarks on your own data. I'm gonna open our agent in our playground right now, and let's take a look together. Here, I have my Contoso support agent. It is using GPT-4o Mini that I just deployed. You see the instructions here. And you see that very simply, I have connected it to my database. And let's ask it a question, again, very relevant to what the city that we are in right now. So tell me about some waterproof shoes. So let's see if it sells any. We'll wait for a response. And while it's providing that, this is essentially the playground experience where you can, in a very a low expectation setting, essentially add your models and your configuration and experiment a little bit with this information. And the beauty of it is we have added certain quality and safety measurements here that can give you a little bit sense of whether this answer makes sense or not. So here I can see that the answers are provided from my database. I can see the quality is 5 out of 5. In this case, I only had activated intent resolution. Because I can do more, I can also activate some additional coherence, fluency, relevance, and then some of the safety measurements as well. And let's ask this question again and see what that turns out to be. So again, this is, of course, just on one answer, but it's a really good way to take a look at the quality and safety answer just to get a sense for it. But of course, you want to move to more scale with that, which I'm going to show you that in a second. So while this is loading, perfect. So you can see that safety risk is 0. None of these things were like violence or self-harm or sexual indirect attack, violence, code vulnerability was mentioned there. I can see fluencies 4 out of 5. I can even take a look at some of my traces to see the reasoning. My colleague will show you that in a second. But what is very key for me is to evaluate it on a bigger data set. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you how we do. So essentially, our Azure AI Evaluation SDK gives you a variety of different evaluators, which I introduced earlier. All of them almost or at least 80% of them, are LLM judge-based, meaning they're using an AI to judge certain quality or safety of the generated responses. So here I see that I have turned them on, like tool call accuracy, intent resolution, task adherence, code vulnerability, content safety, which is an umbrella bucket for sexual, self-harm, hate, and violence, indirect attack, which is referring to indirect jailbreak attempts that might creep in through the maybe like resources or database or grounding data that your model has access to. And while I run this, I can see that my evaluation results are generated in my particular view in Foundry evaluation tab. So I can take a look at, based on my threshold, how many of my tests have been passed. So we color-coded it so you kind of get a sense of how well your test pass are happening. So for example, fluency is great, so it seems like it's very good with the vocabulary and grammatical correctness and everything. Relevance is pretty high. I see that there are opportunity to improve task adherence and tool call accuracy, because some of the tests have failed. But the beauty of it is I can double click on that and see on specific questions and answer what has failed. So we have added this view for you to take a look at the tests that have failed, even take a look at the reasoning behind it. So for example, this particular task adherence has failed because it says that the response partially meets the user's needs by summarizing the product features, but fails to provide specific reviews or insights from the searches conducted. So you can get a sense of why the certain evaluation happened in a way that it has happened, and that helps you a lot more to make informed decision of whether that passes your quality bar for your company or whether you want to improve it with additional guardrails in place. Now, one thing that I want to mention is that's great. So essentially, we have our agent. We did some initial quality testing on it at scale with some evaluation data that we had. But how can we really understand the safety of it? Because that's another super important dimension. That's the dimension that will make you break trust with your customers or leave you in hot waters sometimes on the news if it's not handled correctly. And so we are super excited to announce our partnership with two wonderful companies. Side note, both of the companies are in the room, so after this conversation, if you want to meet with them, please stay here. Credo AI and Sidot. They are the leading AI governance. Thanks for the folks for being here and accompanying us in this session. And so these two companies are truly the leading companies in the space of AI governance. So bringing them to AI Foundry is a very, very great pleasure for us. So the way that it works is they are able to let us register AI use cases in the inventory of Credo AI and Sidot. And then they even do the hard work of telling what risks are applicable to that scenario, so you can measure them. And even more fun, they even have embedded the Azure AI Evaluation SDK in their experience, so you can generate the right metrics. So let's take a look at that together, and I want to use that as a guide for myself in order to know what are the dimensions that I need to generate assessments for. Let's come back here. I'll start with Credo AI. So essentially, you can see that I do have the library for my AI system registry. I have registered already the Contoso Enterprise Agent. I have filled certain information about it, like what is the type of it, what is the resource group, my subscription, and some of the risk types I'll talk about in a second, what is the associated model. Look at how fun this view is. There are a bunch of risks already loaded based on what I provided: lack of adequate capabilities, lack of robustness, false or misleading information, dangerous or violent content, so vulnerability to adversarial attacks. So these are the things that I don't have to do anything. The platform has provided to me. But what is even more fun is when you click on Add Mitigation Controls, you will see that our evaluations are already integrated there. So Microsoft Dash self-harm or relevance or sexual or retrieval. This is how you can essentially provide evidence for such, and you can click on each one You can either upload the evidence if you have already run it in the platform, or view the code sample, which essentially you can run and generate the responses. Very similarly, switching gear to SciDot, you have this systems registry where, oops, sorry, just give me 1 second. Live demos. All right, thank you for your patience. So here you will see the Contoso Enterprise agent. You will see that risks are identified for me based on the scenario that I put down. And very similarly, I can get a lot more guidance in terms of evaluation plans that need to be activated. And so I use the help of these amazing companies to understand what exactly need to run in terms of safety or security measurements that I need to put in place. So let's switch gears. One of the notebooks that, for example, they embed for me is the AI red teaming agent. And I, in particular, very excited about that because that helps me with really understanding what attack strategy, or understanding the vulnerabilities of my AI application. So I can initiate it with the right risk categories that SciDot or Credo AI are providing to me. I can identify the attack strategy. If I'm a little bit more newbie, I can just say, based on the complexity of the attack, and if I'm more advanced, you can look at our documentation. We have the world-class set of attack strategies based on our open source pirate platform or package that you can identify here. And immediately as you run this, your AI red teaming agent starts attacking your AI agent. So all you need to really do is to bring your endpoint, and then it starts attacking your endpoint. And honestly, you don't even need data for it because we provide that attack-like data inputs to it. And then we also measure whether your AI agent is falling for those attacks or not. So I already have run this, and I do have the results to show you. So let me load that. So here is how I ran the AI red teaming agent against my own AI agent to adversarially test it for different types of risks. Before I ship it, I can see that 12% of my attacks are going through across these different categories, like 21% of hate and violence attacks are going through, 13% of violence attacks are going through. So this is a really information because once it's in front of you, you cannot miss it. You have to put the right guardrails in place. And even more fun, you can double click on that and take a look at from the attacks that successfully penetrated through your AI agent, what was the context of it, what was the attack strategy or attack technique, and what type of risk was shown in the answer. So, for example, one of them is a flip, which is actually really known jailbreak attempts that some bad actors will do by flipping the words of a really problematic question, and sometimes AI misses it, so it tries to flip back the wording and then gets confused and actually provides the answer to a very, very hateful or harmful or unsafe type of query. So this particular one was the flip, and then it actually, unfortunately, led to hate and unfairness appearing in the response. So the AI red teaming agent, we're super excited to put it in your hands. Please use it. Pair it with your AI applications. It could be LLM, it could be retrieval augmented generation scenario, it could be AI agents. It really works with everything. You just provide a callback function, attacks it adversarially, gives you a fantastic report, both as a scorecard that you can extract from your code-first experience and in the UI. And now, I have tested my application prior to production with regards to different aspects, with regards to quality. I generated task adherence, intent resolution, fluency, relevance, etc. But I also did it on safety. I measured sexual defect rate, violence, hate, unfairness, and a lot of different categories. I feel good about it. So how about we transition to operate and take it to production and have my colleague Sebastian who can show you how we can continue evaluating this post-production. Thank you.
Great job. Excited to be here. I hope everybody is having a fantastic build. Let's transition to code with even more great demos. We're going to build on the observability capabilities that were introduced as we were prototyping to take our agent to production. Let's go. The same types of challenges that developers face during software development also apply to agent development. It's essential that issues are caught early during pre-production development so that they can be quickly mitigated for fast feedback cycles. We also know that automation is critical so that you don't have to worry about quality, performance, and safety as you iterate. To address these challenges, we're super excited to announce the availability of a new GitHub Action and Azure DevOps workflow extension for agent evaluation. Both can be easily incorporated into your development workflow through the GitHub Marketplace and Extensions Catalog in Azure DevOps, and they're also available in our Agents app template. Diving into a few more details, our CI/CD workflow integration enables you to set up continuous automated batch evaluation using a test data set so that you can measure the performance, quality, and safety of your agent, either by evaluating a single agent or comparing multiple agents. In compare mode, we also compute a statistical analysis that ensures that the results are trustworthy and help you make a decision. These workflows are very flexible and can be triggered on commit by targeting specific files in your repo, on a schedule, or manually. All right, now let's jump into a demo to showcase how the GitHub Action works in compare mode and keep moving forward with the agent that we built earlier. So I'm going to switch over to the demo. And we're going to jump right in. So this is the agent that we originally created. This is our Contoso Outdoors agent. So one thing that we're going to do here is we're going to add Bing as an additional knowledge source. We already have our product catalog as a knowledge source. But we're going to use Bing to incorporate product reviews from the web that are not available. And we're going to test the new version of our agent. And since we're in Seattle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it about kayaks, because I'm in the market for a kayak. I need to get to work somehow. And going in a kayak seems like a better idea than driving my car and being stuck in traffic. So I'm going to ask the agent to tell me about kayaks. And let's see how it does. All right, so this is going to take a minute. And one thing that's going to do, as Marnoush showed earlier, it's going to run an evaluation to let me know how the agent performed in how it responded. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we currently sell any kayaks. They're not available. And the intent resolution received a fairly low score. It did respond as intended. It said, hey, we don't have any kayaks in the catalog, but it wasn't able to help me with the question that I had. So that might be a good market opportunity for us. And we can go ahead and move forward. So now that we've tested the agent on a single run, we can think about deploying it to production. But before we do that, we need to test it at scale. And in order to move forward, let's go ahead and jump right into running our GitHub Action. But before I can do that, I need to have a test data set so that I can test my agent at scale in my CI/CD workflows. And as I was preparing for the demo, instead of typing up a test data set manually or producing it manually, I decided to create an agent that creates a test data set for me. So I went to the playground. I wrote up instructions for the agent. I put in the JSON format for the test data set. And if I ask this agent to generate a test data set with 3 queries, it's going to generate in exactly the format that the GitHub Action needs to run an evaluation at scale. So let's see how it does. Here's my data set. And what I can do is I can copy this over into my repo and get started. So this is the repo that I'm using to deploy my agent. Here I have the test data set. This is already a larger data set. And then what I can do from there is every time I commit a change to my agent, or I'm releasing a new version of my agent, in my CI/CD workflows, as I'm committing that change, I can run a batch evaluation on a large data set to make sure that I'm testing the agent before I'm deploying to production. To do that, I'm going to hop over to Actions. And it's pretty straightforward. This is my workflow, the continuous integration workflow. To run the GitHub Action, all I do is click on Run Workflow. Here, since this takes a few minutes, I'm going to jump straight into showing you what the results look like for a prior run. So this is a run comparing the new agent with Bing Search, as you can see, to the agent that we originally built. You can click through to the Azure AI Foundry to view the evaluation results in the Azure AI Foundry, but you can also view them directly in GitHub, which is really, really great. And we show you statistical analysis to see if there's a statistical difference between the two versions of the agent. In this case, it's inconclusive. And that's good, because we don't need to worry about deploying the new version of the agent to production, and we can keep things moving forward. So that was a quick demo. What we're going to do now is we're going to move forward with bringing Veeam on stage, one of our customers. They're going to show you another implementation of a GitHub Action. Veeam Data Cloud is a company that provides data resilience and gives real-time insights to proactively flag risks and trigger policy-driven recovery. I'd like to welcome on stage Justin Hofer, who is a senior software engineer at Veeam, and he's going to walk you through his demo.
Hi, my name is Justin, and I'm with the Veeam Data Cloud team. And today, I want to share with all of you how we are using Azure AI Foundry to test our AI agent called Veeam Intelligence. In my opinion, when showing off a testing suite, it's a lot more interesting to watch something break than it is to watch something work right. Now, like many other AI agents, Veeam Intelligence uses a variety of tools to accomplish the task at hand. In this case, we're using our tools to query a knowledge base in order to properly answer a user question. Without access to this knowledge base, the large language model would only be able to hallucinate an answer to the question at hand. And that is exactly what we're going to do today. What I have here is a set of changes that is going to disable our access to that knowledge base. And our testing suite should pick up that our changes have caused us to regress and start giving the wrong answer. So I'm going to go ahead and make this commit now. Add my changes and do the commit, and go ahead and push them up. Our testing suite is run as a GitHub action, so we had to actually push those changes up in order to see it in action. Now, over here, we can see that we've got a couple of checks that are starting to spin up. The one we're interested in here is our evaluations benchmark. Now, the Foundry team has some truly great GitHub actions that work for a ton of use cases. However, if those pre-built actions don't work for you, you can do what we did and make your own. In this case, our agents are really tightly tied into our existing code base. So what you see happening here is we're actually spinning up that portion of the code in our GitHub runner so that way we can simulate some user questions against our agent. Now, this is going to take a little bit of time to spin up, so I want to talk a little bit about the background of our agent, so that way we can better understand what tests we're running and how to interpret their results. So today, I'm showing off Veeam Data Cloud for Entra ID. This is our all-in-one cloud solution that our customers rely on not just to protect themselves against cyber attacks, but also to manage things like compliance and managing retention schedules, dealing with accidental deletions, and things of that nature. Now, our customers rely on this backed up data in order to actually manage their applications. If their Entra ID identities get messed up, they could result in all of their code going down. If you're in a situation where you accidentally deleted the identity that it turns out you really, really need to have working in order to actually have your code working in production, you might need an immediate answer. Going out and opening up a customer support ticket or digging through a bunch of documentation may cost time that you don't have. So you might turn to Veeam Intelligence to get an immediate answer. Now, if Veeam Intelligence gives you a response that sends you in the wrong direction, you have a hard time understanding, or is just flat out wrong, it will have failed you in that situation, and that's just unacceptable. So let's go ahead and dig in over here, and this is what our Foundry evaluations looked like before we pushed the change where we're only going to be hallucinating all of our answers. Now, you can see a lot of passes on this board because our agent was working before we disabled those tools. I'd like to take a moment and dig in to this page so we can understand the tests we're running and why they're important for us. Now, the first thing we have over here is our simulated user queries. So in this case, we have things like, what do we need to specify when adding a Microsoft Entra ID tenant? The next column is the ground truth. This is what our testing team determined to be the correct answer for that user question. So in this case, we need to specify the retention period and the backup location. Those are the two most important things. The next column we have here is the actual user response. It's pretty wordy, and it gave a lot of extra information, but if we look over here at number 3, we should see, oh, actually, it's number 2 there. We've got the permissions, and somewhere else in here, I do see that we need to specify the storage location. So the first evaluator we're going to be looking at here is the similarity evaluator. Now, for our basic testing, this is the most important evaluator, because what it does is it compares that ground truth to the response that our agent generated. In this case, we've passed all of them. All of the important information was preserved. Now, we also have these two here, coherence and fluency. Remember earlier, I talked about how it's important that you can understand what the agent is saying. And as far as we're concerned, these are our readability tests. Is the agent giving responses that can actually be understood? Now, while these 3 are great for our day-to-day tests when we just pushed out a little change that slightly changed how the agent worked and we need to make sure that it didn't break anything, they're not always perfect for live monitoring. And when we're dealing with live data, we don't have access to that ground truth. If we did, we wouldn't need an agent. We could just give that as the answer. So that's why we have this next one here, relevance. This evaluator is only going to be looking at the query and the response, and it's trying to measure, is this response relevant to the question that the user asked? We can use this to establish a baseline for how accurate our model actually is before we actually put it into production. Then, in production, we can have an alert monitoring that baseline, and if we dip below it, we can issue an alert to our team to let us know that the quality of our answers is starting to degrade. We also have our content safety evaluators over here. These ones we probably don't need to run on every tiny little change, but we would want to run them before we push to staging or production to make sure that there's nothing that slipped through the cracks and we don't have any bad answers being generated off of our normal stuff. But what if we have a change that opened up a vulnerability? We are also running the AI red team. It looks like that isn't quite spun up yet, but it should be in just a moment, so I'll go ahead and start talking about the AI red team. Now, you've heard a little bit about it earlier, but what the red team means for us is that we can check our application and run that red team to find any vulnerabilities. Because we don't really have a margin for error for having harmful or unwanted responses like that. We're a backup application. We don't want that. So you can see here now, we actually have the evaluations spinning up. The first thing that it's going to trigger is that red team, as you can see here. That'll finish pretty quickly, and we'll go ahead and be able to see how we've passed that red team, hopefully. I'll go ahead and click back over here, and we can see the red team results from earlier today that I ran. Now, if we go in here, we'll see that we are passing all of those on our original version, or most of them, apparently. Looks like we might have to dig in a little more and lock down our agents a little bit more. But let's go back over here and to our evaluation. And we should see, hopefully, that the red team needs a little bit longer. Well, rather than having us wait on that, let's go ahead and look at a set of pre-made evaluations that I did where I disabled that tool call earlier. Now, as you can see here, a lot of our checks are no longer passing. We have a lot of failures, and that's because we're dealing with entirely hallucinated responses. It didn't really affect us on our content safety, but the similarity has failed a lot. It looks like one of the hallucinations actually managed to get it right on, can I recover a deleted user in Microsoft Entra ID? I'm glad it got that one right at least. But we also see here on relevance that we have these 4 fails. So even without access to that ground truth, if we had an alert triggering off of dipping below a threshold, we would now know that there's a problem with the quality of our responses and we need to take action now. I'd like to go ahead and welcome Sebastian on stage and give it back to him.
Awesome. That was really great. Thank you, Justin. Super exciting to see your customer, showcase the observability capabilities that we've launched. And now we're going to transition to production and talk about how we can leverage the observability capabilities that we provide to assess and monitor your AI applications and agents in production to mitigate issues and optimize. When running in production, developers want to have visibility into what's going on with their AI applications, starting with a bird's-eye view that surfaces key metrics, flags issues through alerts, and enables in-depth debugging. In addition to mitigating issues, developers also need to be able to track the overall performance of their application so that they can easily identify specific areas for improvement. To solve these challenges, we're excited to announce the availability of continuous monitoring and evaluation for agents, now available in a single pane of glass dashboard in the Azure AI Foundry, which gives you detailed visibility into performance, resource usage, quality, and safety metrics. Yay, super excited about this. Both performance and resource usage are available out of the box as soon as you deploy an agent, and continuous evaluation can be enabled to run at a sampled rate, for example, 10 per hour, to detect drift and generate alerts for unexpected regressions. These evaluation results are also tied to traces, which gives you detailed insights into the agent execution flow, including input and output, so you can easily debug and root cause regressions. Next, let's show you the monitoring dashboard and how you can use traces for debugging. So I'm going to hop back to the agent that we previously created, and I'm going to show you the monitoring dashboard in the Azure AI Foundry. So this is our monitoring dashboard. You can see the operational metrics at the top, including token usage, inference call duration. That lets you see that everything is going as expected. And then underneath that, we show you the evaluation metrics that you've set up to run continuously at a sampled rate. That could be 10 per hour, it could be 100 per hour, however much you need to be able to track the quality and safety of your agent as you're monitoring. You can see relevance, task adherence, intent resolution, hate unfairness, fluency, coherence, etc. We also show you trend lines, so you can track over time. For example, here, the daily quality average score. There's some inconsistencies here. It seems to be performing better on some days, worse on other days. So that's definitely a sign for me to dig in a little bit more and investigate and assess what's going on. And then when I scroll up, the other part that's interesting in the monitoring dashboard is resource usage. So here I get a little bit more information around the resource usage, including total token count, so that I can keep track of how much of my capacity this specific agent is using. I also have filters available. I can swap between deployments. I can swap between applications and models. So it's pretty easy for me to drill into all of the different aspects of my agents that I have deployed through the Foundry. Now, remember, earlier I said that there's some inconsistencies in the quality metrics. I'm seeing the scores dip across days. So I'd like to drill into that a little bit more to assess what's going on. how can I improve my agent in production so that I can make it better and optimize it over time. So we have a really great set of new capabilities here as well if you click into tracing to assess and debug. When you click into tracing, you can see all of the traces for all of the agent runs that have occurred over a specific time period. Again, you can filter here into specific traces. And as you expand these out, you can see all of the details of the agent execution flow, including the evaluation results that we showed earlier. So remember, the evaluation is run at a sampled rate. And the cool thing about this new set of capabilities is that you can easily pull out specific traces for debugging based on the evaluation results that have been generated. So here's a really great example. What are your store locations in Washington State? This one has a relevance score of 3. And one thing that I know is that my product catalog doesn't include any information about our store locations. So I can click into this trace. I can view the full execution flow of the agent, including input, what are your store locations in Washington State, and the specific output that says the provided files do not contain information about specific store locations. So this is how the agent responded to the end user, and the evaluation results along with explanations of the different scores. So in this case, relevance says the response does not provide requested information, which makes it incomplete. However, it does offer a way to get that information by contacting customer support. So I'd really like to improve my agent so that it provides more relevant answers in the future. And the way to do that is to just enhance the product catalog and give it some more information about my store locations. So this is a really, really cool set of new capabilities that we're providing. And we're going to next dive into a little bit more details. We partner closely with Azure Monitor. We've integrated Azure AI Foundry Observability closely with Azure Monitor. I'd like to welcome on stage Akanksha, who is our product manager for Azure Monitor, to show you what that's all about.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a great time today. I wanted to go and deep dive a little bit on what's the integration between Azure AI Foundry and Azure Monitor. So let's get into it. But first, thank you, Sebastian, for showing the dashboard. That was a really great demo. Now, let's put our Sherlock hats on and see the dashboard with a magnifying glass. Developers are Sherlock who need to understand the root cause and would not go beyond, go for anything less than that. And Azure AI Foundry and Azure Monitor have a deep integration today for developers to be able to do exactly that. Developers can use the underlying data that you see on the monitoring dashboard to measure the signals that matter the most to them, as well as you can explore and focus on the underlying issues which can facilitate your debugging journey. Additionally, you want to be proactive when the next time anything goes wrong with the application in production, and you want to make sure that you get alerted when you're observing your applications in the production environment. So we have Azure Alerts for that today. Now, I want to re-emphasize the continued commitment of Microsoft with the open source community. Everything that we do in terms of telemetry right now is tied into OTel and the open source community that is flourishing today with Microsoft partnership. The semantic conventions that are announced today help standardize data for developers and ensure that the developers have constant interpretation, processing of data between different components of a service, as well as interoperability between the third-party systems and their own applications. So we are so excited to announce MCP conventions, which can comprise of different various metrics and spans for the ease of developers to be able to collect their telemetry. Now, before we start with the detective investigation, let's take a high-level look at AI Foundry's integration with Azure Monitor and the different monitoring scenarios that Azure Monitor offers. The AI Foundry Observability Dashboard is powered by Azure Monitor Application Insights and Azure Workbooks, which queries application insights data. You can also go into Azure Monitor Experience from AI Observability Dashboard in Azure AI Foundry. You can debug and alert with broad visibility. You can really drill into views of the different metrics. You can configure smart alerts, as well as automated action based on your data in the Foundry dashboard. Also, you can visualize using like Azure Dashboards, Grafana, as well as workbooks, which is currently the visualization that we use today in the Foundry dashboard. So now, I'd like to hand it back to Sebastian, who might have some questions for me.
Yes, I do have a bunch of questions. One thing I'm very curious about is how does the Foundry Observability Dashboard connect with Azure Monitor? I'd love to learn more about how that works.
That's an amazing question, Sebastian. And we have application insights integration with Azure Foundry, as I was talking about earlier, and it's really powered by the application insights data based on Azure Workbook. So this is the dashboard that you have all seen earlier. You can go into Azure Monitor Application Insights using the link that we have built in the Azure Foundry dashboard and really open up this particular view, which is a similar dashboard that you see in Azure AI Foundry portal, but with a few additional changes. Let's not go into those changes right now, but I want to really emphasize the additional value that you will get by using Azure Monitor. So Azure Monitor Application Insights has tons of investigation capabilities built into them, which can really help facilitate AI developers go deep into their debugging journey.
Does that mean that I can explore my other Azure resources as well in Azure Monitor?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the ways in which you can do that is the Azure Application Map, which I have pre-populated here for you. Now, it's the same agent that you've seen earlier, that you were developing earlier and productionizing it. And in this application map, you can see all of the dependencies and the logical structure of the application that make up your distributed applications. Now, these components are independently deployed, and they have access to all of the telemetry that comprises all of the application components and systems. So you can go into this view and click any of these components, and you can see the top failing status codes, if there are any failures in the application, what are the slowest call by names, so you can really get into your API call structures, as well as your failed dependencies in your application. So if you want to really investigate further and root cause it, you can go to investigation scenarios and see what exact failures you're getting. So it looks like we're getting a 504, which is not great in production, so we might need to look into that further.
Okay, cool. This is super cool. I'm glad that I get full visibility across the entire Azure ecosystem, that Foundry Observability is connected directly to Azure Monitor. I love this. But I also live in KQL. I like to query the underlying data, to debug further, and look at this from another dimension as well. Can you show me if I can do that?
Absolutely. KQL, or the Kusto query language, is one of the most popular query languages out here. And I have great news for you. You don't need to go very far for KQL. We have KQL integration from AI Foundry dashboard itself. So you can open query link using these options, or you can click on these icons to directly open a view, which is the log analytics query editor view, in which you can see your query results, as well as you can perform many different actions based on those queries. So here you see that the same query results are kind of reflected. All of your evaluator names, all of your final scores and percentage changes are shown here. But the fun thing is you can switch to KQL mode and see the underlying query that is helping you get that data. And you can also tweak something. Maybe you only care about the relevance evaluator. You can edit it and get the exact evaluator that you want.
This is super cool. I love how transparent this is, and that I can get access to the underlying queries. I also saw something about alerting here. How do I create an alert?
Yeah, and alerting is a super important aspect in any developer's troubleshooting journey, because you don't want to wait around until your applications are really degrading in production. You want to be proactive. And as Justin from Veeam also mentioned, relevance is one of the evaluators that are very essential for alerting in production, because they don't have access to ground truth data. And you want to be able to get those alerts in time so that you can go and troubleshoot them. Now, you don't need to go very far for alerts as well, because that's inbuilt in the logs analytics query view. And you can just select the new alert rule from this
cool.
option.
Awesome.
And it will open an entire wizard for you to be able to create the alert rule. Now, I have some pre-populated values here. The cool thing is you can see the exact query. You can edit the query if you want in this view as well. You can select what are you really measuring while you're alerting. Basically, you need to summarize the results and select which summarized result are you alerting on. And I'm going to alert on the final score for the evaluator. And basically, you can select the aggregation type. You can select the alert granularity, which is the period of time you want to collect the alerting data on. So I only want to, let's say I deployed my application 2 days ago. So I want to alert on the data that we have collected for 2 days. And you can also select a particular evaluator name while alerting. So I have selected here fluency and relevance. Basically, I am most interested in these evaluators when I'm going to be alerting on my production application. Once you have all of that set in, obviously, what's the value of your threshold that you don't want your evaluator score to be dipping from? So the operator I'm using is less than 4, and like I don't want my evaluator score to be dipping less than 4, and I just select the frequency of evaluation, basically how often I'm going to be evaluating on that data to be able to get the alert. Now, there are various ways, like if you would want to get the alert to you, basically. So maybe you want to get the alert on your email, maybe you want to get the alert on your phone. So there are different ways in which you can configure that. We have quick actions where you have email, you can input your email, you can input your Azure Resource Manager role, basically if you are a contributor, owner, or you can get your notification on a mobile app as well. So once you have all of that configured, you're good to go and you can create your alert. Very quickly, the alert will look like this. You can also configure severity. So if it's like an SOS scenario, if it's a 911 call, maybe you need to go and debug the application right now, you can make the severity 0 or critical. This is a SEV3, which will send you an email, and you can see what are the properties that you have configured your alert on, and then take action directly from your email.
This is really cool. So I saw earlier it was set up to alert within 5 minutes of the score dipping underneath a threshold of 4. Does that mean I get alerted in an email within 5 minutes?
You get alerted every 5 minutes.
Okay, all right.
If the threshold is met.
Okay, cool. This is super cool. Thank you, Akanksha, for showing us and walking us through how we partnered with Azure Monitor. I'm now going to flip back, and we're going to wrap up and show you some resources where you can learn more about Foundry Observability. Please take a look at these links. We have your user documentation, SDK documentation. We also have a booth in the hub. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, please come by if you have more questions, if you're interested in learning more. There's a blog post that we published that has a short video that walks through all the features and all of the capabilities that we've announced at Build. We'd like to thank you for stopping by. There are also several other sessions that you can check out, including demos and breakouts, where we've covered some of the same set of capabilities. I'm now going to keep working on my agent. I'm excited to hopefully get a kayak soon so that I can get to work in my kayak. And thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your build.
Thank you, everyone.